Welcome, dear brothers and sisters, in the studio of the Sabbath School Department by the General Conference. We would like to study together our next Sabbath School lesson, God's Church During the Plagues. Actually, it's a continuation of the previous lesson that began with the first plagues, and now we will continue studying this event of the last days. With the help of the Lord, we would like to begin with a silent prayer. Amen. Together with us, our dear sister Raquel Orse. It's almost not necessary anymore to present her, and we would like to continue our study now with the help of the Lord. But before we go question by question, we would like to touch based on the structure and the lesson. The first undertitle in this lesson is the sense protected by the angels. We're going to see what happened. If you remember, this lesson is a continuation of several other topics. Before we study about the shaking, we study about the seal and the mark of the beast, the seal of God, protect the faithful ones, and also we understand that the end of the sealing was the end of time of mercy. Now, what happened with those who belongs to the people of God? We studied the last lesson about the disasters that is going to hit our planet, although they will be not universal, but still they will be accumulative, and that will create incredible trouble for all the inhabitants on earth. A very important introduction topic here, and the sense how they will be protected by the angels. Continuing with the structure of the lesson, we're going to see the next undertitle is Tested as was Jacob. It is the Jacob trouble. It's one of the doctrinal issues that we found that in early writings of Sister White and also in the great controversy, and it's very important to have the proper understanding on this terminology. Of course, if you have new visitors in the Sabbath School lesson they are not acquainted with the Seventh-day Adventist terminology, you better explain well to them all these details. What is latter rain? What is the sealing? What is the plagues? What is the shaking? Otherwise, perhaps they will be not able to understand in which kind of topic are we, or what are we talking about. Another undertitle is the struggling for the victory, and this is a very important portion of our lesson. This is actually almost the central point of the lesson. We would like always to put a more positive aspect to the lessons, even if the subject, the plagues, does not permit much positive thinking about this. But thinking about the victory which the faithful ones are going to obtain, that makes really the lessons very attractive and very important for all of us. The last undertitle is Change of Name, and this is a continuation of the topic of Jacob and his struggle for victory, and in the same way we can obtain a victory, and we need to end the lesson positively and giving hope and trust to our visitors and students. With the help of the Lord, now we would like to go into the details of the lesson, and we will study together with our dear sister Raquel, and we will hear her comments as well. Let's go to the very first question. As we already say, this is the introduction. What will be the saints do when the probation closes? And what will sustain them in this difficult time, especially considering the previous lesson that was speaking about the first until the fifth plagues. And all these kind of terrible sores that come upon the skins. And then the plague poured out upon the salty water. Then poured out another plague until the potable water, the drinking water. And we see that then the sun began burning the people. And then darkness comes up into the throne of the seat of the throne of the beast. And all these kind of things together brings to incredible anguish and suffering to the inhabitants of the planet. And the first question here is, what will the saints do when the probation closes, when the plagues begin to be poured out?
We are considering in this lesson the other group of people, in this case the faithful ones, that also are the minority among the population of the earth. And then the first question tried to introduce us about the attitude and the reactions of the people of God at that time. So we have here as references two Bible quotations. We have Isaiah 26 and Isaiah 33. And the first one is very important to find the answer of these questions. Come, my people, enter thou into thy chambers, and shut thy doors about thee. Hide thyself as it were for a little moment, until the indignation be overpassed. So the first things that we see is that when the plagues began to fall or pour out in this earth, the people of God know about that, because our Bible students have preached the last message to this earth, and when the plagues began, they know where they are. So they know that now is the time to hide, is the time to go to desolated places, to find protection in very diverse places that are not very full with people. They don't have too much population. So they are aware about the commission of the Lord. They need to hide. They know also that it's only for a while. It's not an indefinite time. According to the prophetical times, we know that it's less than a year. So they know what to do, for how long this will happen. And the other element that is interesting in Isaiah 33, 15 and 16 are the ones also described here that are faithful, and here is not mentioned where they are, what they are going to do, but why they are the faithful ones, which are the attributes and their character. And it's interesting that say they walk righteously, spoke upright, despised the gain of oppressions, that shaketh his hands for holding of bribes, that stoppeth his ears from hearing of blood, and shuteth his eyes from seeing evil. He shall dwell on high. His place of defense shall be munitions of rocks. Bread shall be given him. His water shall be sure. So the people of God at that time have gathered experience with God, have a specific attitude regarding to evil, not to be part of it, and they have practiced this during the time of grace. So now, in the time to live without intermediator, they know that they are on the right side. And it's interesting to see that they have very specific attributes, that they say the truth, that they walk according to what is right, that they hate everything that is evil and is not good. and at the same time they know very well that now is the time to flee, that this is only for a certain period of time, that after this all evil will disappear forever, and they know also that God will take care of them. So they know that the Lord have provided place for defense, place for protection, and also the bread and waters will be sure. So even if it's an extreme situation, and to live in this earth when this happens will be very, very, very heavy and extremely sad, and really impressive for every human being. At least the people of God knows what is going on, what will happen, for how long, and that the maintenance of life will be provided by God himself and his angels.
Thank you very much. It's incredible, wonderful is this promise.
Yeah.
Some people will say, okay, water and bread is not that much, but if you compare the time and the trouble in which the whole world is, that there is actually almost no drinking water, because the water the plague comes upon the sweet water and it becomes like a blood. Even if it is not, the plagues will not be universal, it should be just in certain places, but still that's already today we have a currency of sweet water, and many places are in trouble because they don't have sufficient water, and that will be the case in end of time, but the faithful ones will have water. This is incredible promise. I would like to pay attention on the testimony, and the testimony says, I saw the saints living in cities and villages and associating together in companies, in living in the most solitary places. It seems to me that before the plagues comes and before this terrible crisis comes, perhaps other crises have come already and have make it necessary that the faithful ones depart from the big cities, and you see that actually the majority of these faithful ones are in the solitary places. But you can also see that they are not alone. They are together. They keep together. And that is very important. Many questions have come to us asking if the organization will continue existing in that time. We see that exists because people are in groups together. And where there are 2 or 3 in the name of Christ, we know that he is there, and where God is, there is also order. Let's continue the lesson. And question number 2 says, what was Haman's plan when he asked for the edict against the Jews? A little comparison again with the Old Testament, and this is the story of Esther. We have had a similar parallels in the previous lessons. What would you say, Raquel? What happened?
In this quotation from the book of Esther, we find the main attributes or characteristics that identify the people of God. And the same situation will be again a reality. Let us consider one by one these attributes of the people of God. It says, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom. It's very interesting that the truth, the people of God is not limited to a place, to a culture, or also not to a ethnicity. And is here in the Bible text mentioned very clearly that is a certain people, so it's a specific group of people, but at the same time these people are dispersed all over the world. And so this attribute is the internationality of the people of God. Let us go to the second attribute that say, and their laws are diverse from all people. So here we find the second attribute. So the principles, the values, the way to act, and the regulations in life are completely different, because have to do with food, have to do with daily life, working system, day of rest, way of dressing, education, family relationship. So it have a very specific characteristics that make the people of God peculiar in the way of life. And now we have the third attribute that say, neither keep they the king's law. And this is interesting, because we know that during the time of grace, in the last period of the history of humanity, the law of God will be in question, and all of them that decided to follow, to live according to the principles of heaven will suffer persecution, because the civil and religious laws will be against the law of heaven. And this is the third attribute also that was characteristic in the time of Esther, when this persecution came against the people of God, that they don't accept the law of the king. And the law was that nobody had the right to ask, to pray, or to worship anybody beside the king himself. And we know that we honor God about everything and about every other person. So these three elements is very important. The fourth is also very interesting. Say, therefore, it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. So, because they don't believe the same, they don't follow what the majority say, because they are so peculiar and so firm in the defense of the truth, is not benefit, is not profit with these people that don't do what everybody's have to do. So this element is very interesting, because this will be exactly the same. And we know from all the experience of Esther and the people of God at that time, that even when the law was issued to destroy the people of God, God intervened in a wonderful and marvelous way, in the same form that he will do at the end of time. Even when the situation look extremely dangerous, and the people of God think, okay, this is the end, this is impossible to go on, God will intervene in such a way that good will overcome, even if seems impossible.
Thank you very much. Very interesting is the parallel with the time of Esther, and actually Haman was thinking that by persecuting the Jews and persecuting the people of God at that time, he will gain more fame, and he will gain more influence in the kingdom and in the front of the king. But we see that it turns exactly the opposite, and I think that is the major point in this comparison, that also in the end of time people will think that by eliminating the people of God, they will contribute to a blessing. The plagues will stop, the trouble will stop, because then these differences, religious differences, will be actually eliminated. But by so doing, they actually will hang themselves as Haman did, because the people of God are the one that are the central point of attention, the attention of God. And here is a very important testimony again on early writings, page 282. Then I saw the living men of the earth consulting together, and Satan and his angel busy around them. I saw writing copies of which were scattered in different parts of the land, giving orders that unless the saints should yield their peculiar fate, give up the Sabbath and observe the first day of the week, the people were at liberty after the certain time to put them to death. You see how close, almost identical, is the situation we ask in the time of Esther. But let's continue our lesson and see what's really happened and what the people of God can expect in the end of time. And this is question number 3. What argument will the wicked use to go against the saints? We mentioned already differences, different culture. They don't obey all the laws, perhaps, and the Sabbath is different as well. But which will be the main argument which the wicked will use against the people of God, Raquel?
We know one argument that was used by Caiaphas during the trial of Jesus. If we consider John 11:49 and 50, we see that first of all he expressed a very offensive statement toward the members of the council when he said, "Ye know nothing at all." So we see that the religious power at that time will take a place above all other powers, and will also decided according to human logic that it's better that one man should die for the people and that the whole nation perish not. So this argument was used in the time of Jesus, and this will be repeated again. There are different reasons why this argument was used. In the time of Jesus, we know that he was challenging the religious system, the religious ordinances added to the principles of heaven that the religious powers at that time have established. He also challenged the way of life, the priorities and the values that the religious institutions have teach to the people. So he make a difference through the establishment or from the true principles, the uplifting of the law of God, the right presentation of the character of God, and the example in his own life how everyone need to be. So to serve others, to help others, to be there for others, to say the truth, to preach the truth. So that was not in the frame of the religious and also civil powers at the time of Jesus. Exactly the same will happen at the end of the time. Why? Because this minority, the people of God, will say no. The Sunday is not the day of God. This is not the day to worship God. The law of God say in the 4th commandment that the Sabbath is the right day. So they contradict openly the teaching of the high religious authority and political authority at that time. So they are also a challenge for them. Not only that, but the way how they behave, how they preach the message, how they present the Word of God, how they teach what is the most important thing, again, is in contradiction from all the dogmatic and believing praxis that will be in the future, as it is now also. So it's better to eliminate them, because anyway it's like one man against the majority of the population. In this case will be one small group of people in comparison with the majority of humanity. They think this is not a problem, that the people will disappear. So this principle will be a reality again. And in the same way, also in the courts, when the people of God will be called to give an explanation of their faith, why they decided to do so, the principle will be the same. This is what we are not doing that, because the majority are not doing that. So you need to submit, you need to do what the powers, political and religious powers, say. And the moment that the people of God say no, the decision is sentence of death, arrest, and so forth. In this moment, we need to remind ourselves with these Bible texts from Revelation 13, the powers that we already studied, like the beast, the second beast, the image of the beast. So we find that Catholicism, false Protestantism, Spiritism, or paganism will be all together in order to have only one way of dealing with humanity. Therefore, this group that challenge these powers will be declared as undesirable, and because of that need to be destroyed, eliminated.
Thank you very much. The testimony says it will be urged that the few who stand in opposition to an institution of the church and a law of the state ought not to be tolerated. So no exception can be tolerated. In this case, actually, obviously the government at that time will be a tremendous, dictatorial government. I can imagine that this is comparable with the time of Nazis in Germany, or the governments of the communists in different places around the world, like now in North Korea. It's no contradiction to the government can be tolerated. Any difference cannot be tolerated. And a similar government is then supposed to take place. That's why also the Constitution of the United States have to be changed, and several other things have to follow. Anyway, this few or this small group cannot be tolerated. This is what happened also with Jesus Christ. Of course, the miracles that Jesus performed were a very strong argument about his holiness and his divine origin. And in the end of time, actually, there will be other miracles, similar like in Egypt. Moses performed miracles in the front of the Pharaoh, but what happened is that his magicians came and they perform, or they imitate the same miracle in the beginning of this session. And in similar way here we see also Satan will perform a lot of miracles so that, if possible, subdue the news of that peculiar opposition, that peculiar minority that will perform a lot of miracles in the end of time under the power of the letter rain. Let's continue now and see what happened after this terrible dictatorship takes place. And this dictatorship actually will not be just upon one country or two countries, but looks like will be almost covering the entire world, because there will be very few places where the faithful ones can hide themselves, or they can unite themselves. That's why they go to the desolated places. Question number 5 says, what test will God's children face at that time? Which will be the test? We understand that the pressure from outside will be a political, religious pressure, and also juridical pressure, because they will be condemned, many of them. Some of them will be cast in prison, and this is incredible pressure from outside. But in this question we're going to see that there is also additional test which the children of God need to go through. What is going to
It's
happen?
very interesting to compare the past lesson that describe to us the situation of the people that suffer the plagues. And we have seen that between the first and the fifth plague, they blaspheme the name of God. And twice is mentioned in this period of time. So even when the ones that have rejected God and His law openly live in extremely mentally an oppressive anguish of soul and mind because of the plagues that came upon them, but at the same time because they realize finally that the decisions that they have taken, the way have they oriented their life was wrong. Now, the people of God is witness also all this situation, and the people of God see the plagues and realize the painful situation and the dramatization of the people in this special moment. But what bothers the people of God at this time are different elements. So we see the attitude have to do with the characteristics, the decisions, and the principles of these two groups of people. So how human beings in this moment, people of God, behave and feel is described in the Bible under the term Jacob's trouble. This is very important to understand in order to see that also is a mental suffering going on among the people of God, but have to do with a completely different background and origin as the majority of humanity in this case. And we see here the second question, why it is necessary for them to pass through this. In order to understand this, we need also to have or make a reference to Jacob and Esau, that also were two types of human beings that represent the two big groups of humanity, even at the last time. So we know that Jacob have deceived his father, his brother, and finally he needed to fly and alone to fight for their own life. He encountered God in his way toward his mother place and made a covenant with God. Spent 20 years approximately with Laban, his father-in-law. During this time went through a lot of difficulties and problems. He was married, have children, and now he is coming back. He is coming back ready to confront his past, ready to solve everything that was pending in the past. And he needed to confront his brother. He needed to confront what happened 20 years ago. And a night was extremely important in his life that was a memorial and is also the middle point of the terminology of Jacob's trouble. And that was the night by the Jabbok River. This is when he remained alone, when he decided to put in a safe place his family, and spend the night praying and pleading to God for intervention, for salvation, for the assurance of the forgiveness and the acceptance of God. So this was his purpose, and he spent the night doing that. When the morning began and the first lights came, he realized that what he supposed was his enemy was the angel of God, and we know that was Jesus Christ. And he claimed to receive his blessings. He asked firmly, without doubt, to become a new person. And God granted him this wish and say, you are not more to be called Jacob. You are not more a liar. You are not more a deceiver. You are now an overcomer. And this experience from the past life to a new life with a new name is exactly how we can define this Jacob's trouble. The Jacob's trouble is a process. The Jacob trouble is the period of time of the plagues that the people of God go through, fighting against themselves, trying to make sure that everything is in the right place. Remembering also how weak we are as human beings, how our nature, how our life is unworthy of salvation. And only through Jesus Christ we can achieve salvation. Only through the faith in Jesus Christ we can achieve the victory. So in this situation, that is a limit situation for the evil ones and also for the people of God, they go through agony. They go through a terrible mental suffering. But the origin, the reason why this happened for both groups is completely different. So the people of God go through Jacob's trouble. This is the process from the transition between what we are as human beings and what we can be through God. This change was already made during the period, but still they don't feel ready. They don't feel sufficient. And this is the principle of true conversion. Not to feel sufficient, not to feel saint, not to feel holy, ready, perfect for heaven. But even in this terrible situation, to feel this dependence of God between life and death.
Thank you very much. Actually, we don't want to give the wrong impression. The people of God are not trying to overcome their sins in this situation, because we know that this Jacob trouble actually takes place after the end of time of mercy, which means that they are sealed. And if you remember, the word saying in this moment is the one that is holy remain holy, and the one who is unholy, he remain unholy. So it is no more chance of repentance, no more possibility of doing some changes in the thing in the spiritual life. Nevertheless, the saints are in this anguish because they know that they have no their intercessor and mediator and in heaven. Jesus have left the most holy place. He have taken now the robe of king and no longer the high priest. And now this is the anguish of the people of God, because they suffer. How could they survive without the presence of Jesus in the most holy place? But we know that this is possible. If not possible for us, possible for God. We know that Jesus is also delivering the Spirit of God in a very big measure, so that this people of God, they can be blessed and they can be under the control of the Spirit, in total possession of the Spirit of God. A little bit about the testimony. Soon I saw that the saints suffering great mental anguish. Let me show that on the screen. They seemed to be surrounded with the wicked inhabitants on earth. Every appearance was against them. Some began to fear that God had at last left them to perish by the hand of the wicked. There is the problem. Some of them began to fear because there is no trust in itself. The trust of all these people have been totally given in the hands of Jesus Christ. And now when they know that Jesus is no longer in the most holy place, that is the result. This is the anguish as a consequence. But let's go now to the next question. And we would like to see question number 5. What means will the Lord use to purify His church? What kind of means will God use in this situation? I mean, the church is already purified. There's, the shaking have taken place. But let's consider how God actually guided to this purification.
The situation is extremely dramatic. So the people of God observe the destruction of this planet, the suffering of the evil ones. So they cannot be indifferent to this situation. So it's very difficult for us even to imagine how painful, how traumatizing will be this experience. Not only because they realize that they are only one step near to death, because the enemies of God will look for the people of God to kill them, to destroy them forever. So for one side is the fear, the dramatic situation where they are living in. From another side, they are aware that they are at the end of time, so that everything will come to an end very soon. And they want to have this assurance from heaven. They cry to the Lord for deliverance. They feel that they cannot bear this situation anymore, because the evil ones, they suffer what they have done it. So the people of God see all the suffering of the other ones. They carry their own suffering. They need to observe all this situation. They know that in every moment the evil ones can catch them, and they know that they have the purpose to kill them. So this mental anguish for the spiritual experience, the fear and terror for everything that they see, for everything that they experience, bring them in a situation that they need desperately the presence of God. They need to feel it. They need to make sure that the angels are with them, that God will take care of them, because they feel like abandoned on this earth. And let us for a moment think about the experience of Jesus in Gethsemane. We know that his suffering was so extreme that even drops of blood came out of his skin and touched the earth. So this anguish, the people of God need to go through. They need to feel the heaviness of the sin. They see the consequences accumulated during thousands of years upon this earth, and how terrible is it. They are almost not able to bear it. So they desperately cry to the Lord for help to finish these things, to take them with him. and that they don't need to see, not to be even on this earth anymore, because this will be an extremely dramatical situation.
Thank you very much. Actually, we see that Malachi chapter 3 verse 2 to 4 says, "But who may be able in the day of his coming? Who may abide in the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeared?" So actually there is also another very important question. If the saints, if the righteous ones have really overcome all their sins, if they have really been sanctified unto such a level that they can stay in the appearance, in the presence of God. And we know that closer we are to Christ in our spiritual experience, more sinful we feel ourselves and more filthy we see our own nature. So that's why the experience of the saints is very logical in this situation, and this anguish is actually a production, a consequence of fruits of their high level of spirituality, we can say. Question number 6 says, if one struggle with God in prayer as did Jacob, what will be the outcome today and in the time of trouble? That's a very important question, I think, and it's good to that each one of our visitors and brothers and sisters and friends think about, because it is much easier to prevent than to cure, as many natural medics says. And in that case, it's much better that we use the time now than to expect something special to happen, supernatural, in the very end or the last moment, that we be ready. And that's what Hosea and Isaiah are talking about. What will you say, Raquel?
Again, we come to the specific point of Jacob's trouble, and it's interesting to see that Jacob have one purpose, and he pursue this objective with such insistence, with such perseverance, that the Bible say he prevailed, because he wept and he made supplication, and then he found the victory. So in this period of time, the people of God make the experience to live literally by faith. They don't have nothing, absolutely nothing. Nothing that they can say, that is mine, this will help me, this will support me. They are completely helpless. They don't have nothing. Some are in prison, some are in desolated places, some are in exile, some are fleeing through the mountains, some hide in caves and in the deeps of the earth. So they don't have nothing. And they know that even they don't have their own life, because in every moment can be destroyed. So Jacob experienced this moment as the higher moment of drama in his life. He knew Esau is coming with 400 soldiers with weapons to kill him, all his family, children, and everything that was alive. And only because things that he have done 20 years ago. So all this bothered Jacob. And he knew that this was the moment, this was the only opportunity to finish with the evil things at once. And the people of God will go through this experience. They realize they don't have nothing, houses, cars, technology, nothing. They are completely alone. And then they know that the only one that can help, the only one that can be with them is Jesus Christ. And they will prevail because they will weep and they will make supplication. And God will come to deliver his people. He has promised and he's going to do it. But the Lord will bring his people to the limit. One step before the abyss. And this experience is a very, very unique experience. Therefore, when the Bible describes this time of anguish, say that never before something like that was, and never after will even happen anymore. So the point of redemption, the point to be with God forever, is the only element that surrendered the life of the people of God. They are not dependent of any other thing because they don't have nothing. So they came to the experience and to realize as never before that only with God. And they are ready for that. And this is a very anguish experience that they need to go through, that everything will take away from them. And that even the life, they cannot count on that. Exactly the same experience of Jacob. And they will ask the Lord to save their lives for salvation, because they don't take care of his biological or organical life.
Yeah.
They already have proof for that.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It's very important here also a little bit of the testimony. It says, suddenly a hand is laid upon his shoulder, Jacob's shoulder, and he thinks that the enemy is seeking his life. Actually, the angels appear in this case, or the angel appeared to comfort him, to give him a comfort. And that will be also the case of the people of God in the end of time. They will be comforted by the angel of God, by the presence of God, by the Spirit of God. But as we already mentioned, this agony will be or will reach to its climax. If we consider the entire environment in which these people are, that there are plagues all over, that people are in such a struggle and pain, and there is such a furious also persecution, even that they are delivered into a death sentence from the government. I mean, there is no way. It is like in the time of the Exodus from Egypt, where from one side were the rocks, from the other side is the sea, and behind comes the military forces of the Pharaoh. And there were no way where to escape. There was no way how, humanly speaking and humanly thinking, people can obtain salvation. And this is similar the situation here. Even in the Second World War, where there was this furious persecution against the Jewish people and the people of God, against our church as well, they have been countries where the people could escape. But in that very end of time, we believe that actually there will be almost no place on earth where the people can feel safe, because persecution will be everywhere. We would like to see now the question number 7. What result from Jacob's struggle and victory? What kind of victory obtained now this specific holy people that have actually survived the mark of the beast, all the persecution? They have been so strong that they survive the shaking, which is shaking. If you remember the Sabbath school lessons, it's terrible earthquake, spiritually and economically and all kind of it. And they have survived that. They have survived the mark of the beast. They have received the seal of God. They have been approved. They are obtaining, or they have obtained already the the latter rain, and they have participated in this glorious spreading of the gospel, performing tremendous works and miracles in the front of the whole nations. They have answered in front of judges and kings and leaders in the whole world, and now they're in such an anguish because the only things that matter to them is the approval from Jesus Christ, the approval of God, and He's no longer in the most holy place. But what kind of victory they obtain in this struggle?
They overcome evil. They overcome the sin through the power of God. And the symbolic behind that is when the name of Jacob was changed to Israel. From a liar become an overcomer. The people of God at this time will understand sin as never before. Never before. Exactly because they saw the destruction, the desolation, the horror in the planet Earth and also among human beings. So this brings them also to an internal reflection, meditation, and they are concerned about their own situation. They know that they are also human beings, that the difference between those that receive the plagues and themselves have to do only with the relation with God. And this makes the difference. And they want to make sure that everything is upright with God. That the lives that they have lived don't have any pending issues or some things that are not resolved. In reality, everything is already resolved, but they never feel this self-sufficiency. They have absolutely dependence of God. They understood that only with God, through God, and in God, we can overcome. And to go through this experience have the result of victory. Therefore, in Revelation, we have the wonderful promises that God gave to His people from the last time, to be a pillar in the temple, to be a column, to have a firm foundation, to have the name of God, to be part of the heaven and the end of sin and the victory of good.
Thank you very much. I think it's a great passage, this testimony of the great controversies here. It says, as the evidence of His triumph and the encouragement of others to imitate His example, His name was changed from what which was remembered of His sin to one that commemorated His victory. And I think that will be the incredible experience of all those who trusted the Lord. I think that one of the doubts they are going to have is Christ really going to come right now? Since so many nations and years and so many times the people of God were hoping that Jesus will come, the Son of God will come, He will take them even from Adam. Adam believed that the Messiah is already there, but they have to wait, and they have to wait, and they have to suffer, and perhaps that is also one of the fear and doubt that the saints have. But we know that they will hear the voice of God, and the voice of God will announce the day and the hour of the coming of the Son of God. So the children of God will not be left alone. All the time, angels will be with them, the Spirit of God will be with them, they will comfort them, and they will give them the strength they need to survive in that incredible, difficult time without the intercessor and the heavenly court and the heavenly temple. Dear brothers and sisters, may the Lord bless you and help us to understand these very important topics, and today to be prepared, today to obtain the small victories of our daily life that will guide us to a big victory and the end of time. May the Lord bless you and have a happy Sabbath day.